We are
Hello,
live.
everyone, and welcome to. We are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of BMF Discussions, where we will be discussing BMF. We're in season 4 of the show, of the series, and I am your host, Dana, joined by Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you doing, good sir?
Doing good, Dana. What's up, listeners and viewers?
I know he was shaking like Lamar, trying to get his necks fixed. He said, "When is BMF coming back? I need me another hookup. What's going on?" And then he saw that trailer and was like, "Hey man, it's here. I cannot wait to sit and watch every single episode of this show." Um, so yes, BMF is back. I have seen the first set of episodes. It was 1 through 8 that they have sent us, and I'm here to talk spoiler free about what you can expect from the series, kind of the theme of the series, and how it differentiates and kind of is the same in what we've seen before. Kind of the goods and the positives and a little bit of the negatives. But I will say this: there is a mass improvement from this series compared to the other seasons. Sorry, a mass improvement from this season compared to the other seasons, where I feel that we're getting more, not necessarily what we call it cohesion, but we're getting to points that matter. One of the big elements of this series, or this season, sorry, is going to be the music factor. We are finally getting into the music creation of the label, finding the artists, the talents to funnel in the money that they have used in the previous seasons, how they've obtained it. Um, and what is interesting, kind of from the very beginning, that ties into the previous, is the kind of the brothers, Terry and Meech, and how they are slowly starting to unravel. The huge theme for this season is called The Enemy Within. And it is about, it's not necessarily the outside that will break you apart, but the people you keep closest to you. And not even just the people you keep closest to you, but even also yourself. How sometimes you can see things done a different way, and how you hold on so much to what your belief is that you're unable to see the much larger picture from it. And that can actually lead to your downfall more. And what is interesting is not just the brothers and that reflection of that, but it also extends to the family. How we, or an individual, will end up paying for someone else's sins. The continuation theme of, the innocence, and losing that innocence because not something that you've done, but because of the environment in which you are surrounded into. One of the things that they talk about, obviously, is the continuation of Charles and Lucille. They have gotten that, divorce. They are leading, and living their own separate lives with their own separate careers. You have Charles getting back into the music and finding that passion once again. And Lucille has always been something and someone that was tied deeply into the church. She is now becoming a pastor. And what does that mean when she is someone who is a follower of the church, who now has to lead the flock, especially when her household is still broken? Or what is really the definition of broken? Because the whole point of spirituality and religion and church is to come to the Lord as a broken shell, and to then get repaired by that. And whether or not you feel that you're capable of leading others because of the lessons that you have learned in your past. So Lucille has to really come to terms with kind of what is the definition or meaning of a leader and a pastor within that church, when everyone knows, hey, didn't your son sell drugs, and isn't your son doing this, and I saw your son talking to that guy. And also dealing with a marriage that is falling apart. And one of the other big things is Lucille, and we saw it in previous seasons. She started a family very young. She never had that opportunity to live life in freedom. She got married, she had kids. Here's the house. The house is falling down. So we can't get the job that we wanted, but she always had hopes and dreams and plans. What does it now mean when you can go back and live those lives and those dreams that you had? Are they still the same dreams that you once thought you had? And what does that mean? And whether or not it can change you. And that also goes with Charles as well. Charles, as we know, is huge into music. That is why the brothers are huge into music as well. It's something that is passed down, and he has kind of given up on his music. But what now happens when he is able to create again, and if he is able to tour, because now it's all about touring in a band, what happens when he's able to tour and the adventures that he is going on and the sounds that he is able to discover? But also at the same time, there is still family. Nicole is still in the house. She is the last of the siblings to leave. But what does that mean for both Nicole's journey, who has always had to respond to her family and their actions? I also felt like, in the previous seasons, she was also the kind of a forgotten child because they were so focused on Terry and Meech. She would always just sit there and be like, hi, I exist. And everyone would move around her without really seeing her. So what is it now to enter into adulthood? You graduated high school, you made it, and the pressures of being of going from high school to college. Yes, there is that sense of freedom, but your parents are still lurking. You don't want to disappoint them, but at the same time, you want that freedom. If you act out in a way that is a normal teenage behavior, is that considered rebellion? So you have her walking that thin line of still kind of teenagehood and adulthood, and her trying to find out who she is, but also at the same time, the actions of the family, especially the brothers, still have an effect on her life today. So is she really truly free? So it dives into her story as well. We also have kind of the BMF family that we've kind of mentioned before, the entire reason as to why the brothers started this. Yes, there is the poverty aspect, but also the thing that they stated made them different from we're not a gang is that we have a family. We take care of each other. We have the responsibility that is shared. But what is the weight of that when there was two brothers working together now or separate? And they're all going their own ways. And the people who worked with you are like, hmm, that's interesting. I thought we were a unit. What is going on? And what happens when outside forces see that relationship is broken and see that the family itself is broken? I mean, you did have, for example, B. Mickey, who was forced to kind of feed information to Detective Bryant. But at the same time, it still is whether or not you can trust him. And he is a character that is brought back who has his own family issues now with his daughter having an illness and how that impacts the family. Because again, money. I think everyone would be the person that they're able to be if they didn't have money issues. So what does that mean for B. Mickey having to grovel back and be like, hey, I'm back. I need a favor. Whether or not he's willing to do things that is immoral for his daughter's sake. And so you dive also into that as well. And he is carrying the burden of, remember, he had a family previously, Kato, and Kato was pregnant. What that would have looked like as opposed to the family that he has now. And questioning whether or not he's paying for the sins of essentially killing Kato in the previous season. And whether or not the daughter, who we do know has an illness, is that kind of the cause and effect. Oh, am I paying for is it karma? Am I paying for what I did in my past for my daughter? And the weight of that and the kind of the desperation of wanting to do right by the daughter, again, that requires money. What are you willing to do for money? Also, the continuation is with Detective Brian, which had I think, one of the saddest kind of arcs in previous seasons regarding his son. Remember, his son was being bullied at school. He wanted to be he loved comics. He wrote his own comics. He was such an innocent little nerd, but a good nerd. He listened to his dad, but he was being bullied. And he wasn't being, paid attention to by his dad to sit and talk about what do we do? So he decided to put, it in his own response, his own hands, found a gun and killed a kid. And you can argue, whether or not that was the right decision at that time. Who's really responsible? Is it really the father's fault, or was it his fault? Is he responsible for his own actions? He went to jail and then they put him in gin pop. He didn't make it. He committed suicide. And what is the weight of having your kid commit suicide and having to move on? And Detective Brian is kind of a person, I think, like all people, he doesn't take responsibility for his actions. And so we have that whole dynamic of chasing BMF again, which you go back for season 1, episode 1, he was one of the arresting officers. So that is really interesting. We get to see kind of his revenge tour and what that does to him on a mental level, because he doesn't have his son. So he's operating at a different speed than he would have previously. And we do get to see him work with other people. And the fact that he has been following BMF for so long, how is he able to guide other people into trapping them as well? And whether or not they'll even listen to him. There's a lot of power structure and play within the policing kind of world with that. And then, of course, we have to talk about the return of Lamar, which I know Richard was like, yay, when he saw that. That character is back because he just won't die. And what is it like to have someone who is constantly there trying to kill you and he won't die? Richard, do you have something to say?
I do want to make a quick comment. I don't want to cut you off, but I just to go to what you said about I was excited to see Lamar return. As soon as I saw Lamar show up, I sent a message to Gary, and his immediate response was laughter. So I do hope there is a reason for Lamar's return. But no, continue, Dane. I want to hear what else you have to say.
No, so we do have the return of Lamar and how that plays within, and then whether or not he is able to actually infiltrate the group, and whether or not you and Lamar acts in a way of being an infiltrator. He is just someone who literally can come in guns blazing. And whether or not he is successful, I think that even if he did actually die, because he's been dead like 4 times in this show, but if he was still to die, I still feel that the ghost of Lamar would still come back and be like, I got you now, choke you in the middle of the sleep. And that's just how it is. But we'll see whether or not his return is something that is actually paid off at the end, which I can't say nothing about. But yeah. And so then also going around with that, we have the music scene. Yay! Which is something that, a lot of people have been waiting for so long. This is not the big music record that we're expecting. This is more about the first kind of record label that they started. So it starts off little by little. Let's find an artist, find a sound, and we are in the backdrop of 1990s and the sound of the 1990s. And for people who were alive during the 1900s, that will be something that is very nostalgic to them and what that culture was like. One of the things that was teased within this season is the hip hop. The Hip Hop Source Awards. Sorry, I almost said the Source Hip Hop Awards. I'm not sure which order that goes into. I'm dyslexic. But the point is, 1995 was a very huge year in music, especially in hip hop. And that awards kind of set the tone for both the industry in terms of East Coast, West Coast. The South has sounds. Outkast, Tupac, Biggie, Suge Knight, a guy named Diddy, who was dancing in the videos. Take that, take that, take that. And of course, we know the big Suge Knight thing that we was like, if you don't want a guy dancing all up in your videos, come over to Death Row Records. And of course, the backdrop of Death Row Records, where we had Snoop and Dr. Dre. And like I stated before, Outkast was like, hey, all right, we exist. What's going on here? Listen to our sound, and how that forever changed the sound of music, but also that created a rivalry that if you did watch the Source Awards, I don't know if it's even on YouTube. John Singleton, rest in peace to him, tried to quell it. He was one of their saying, hey, let's not have any rivalries, because he knew Boys in the Hood, very huge in the 90s. Remember that one? Kind of a pioneer in black film along with Spike Lee. knew where this could go. And he did Boys in the Hood. So he knew of the violence that could come out behind this. And unfortunately, that is something that did happen. Um, I will say this. Sometimes trailers can be very deceiving. And what we hope we get to see may not be the case. Sometimes we can build ourselves up and think we're going to get something, when in actuality, we're not at all. We might just get a mention, like a hey, instead of actually diving into the culture. And I think this is, I have to talk about the positives and the negatives. We'll get to some other positives. I want this to be equally weighed, but I really do. Yes, I understand that this is about BMF and the family and what that is like. But I think that if you are creating a season that dives into the music industry, I want to see more of the music industry. I don't think it's a really hard concept. I want to see the influences of music. And if you're going to reference one of the biggest moments in hip hop, I would have appreciated you actually showing that. I don't know what copyrights and how that plays with licenses, but I'm pretty sure you can reenact events. It does say at the beginning that this is all of this happened, but it kind of didn't happen. So you can kind of build up things and make it for dramatic effect. And I will say that that is one of the most let down situations. And again, I would only have myself to blame, and maybe some responsibility of how the trailer was cut, because it really did make it seem like, oh, this is it. This is the 99.95. This is the big incident. We're doing music. We're going to reflect on what happened. And we really don't get to dive into that. And I was very disappointed. But again, I don't know if I was disappointed because of my own expectations, or was it because they had some hand in it, because that was the way how the trailer was. It was cut with that. But also going in with that, I think, as we all know from previous seasons before, the brothers were getting separated. We have to talk about Marquisha. Marquisha is back, and she wants a bigger role within the group, and not only just within the group, she wants to be her own person. This is something that I actually did appreciate, was the fact of what happens when you have people who are working under you. And yeah, you're really great at giving advice, but you're not viewing them as someone who's serious enough to kind of expand the business and to have their own piece of the pie. And what does that look like? Is it more of a confrontation, or is it more of them being able to work together? And if Marquisha is able to step in, will she act like a replacement brother to Terry? In terms of with Meech, is she trying to get Meech out of the picture, which we've seen in the trailer? It was like, yeah, they don't think they can, he doesn't think he's as good as you. That kind, or you don't think he's, it was basically them hear her alluding to, you're better than your brother. And we don't know if that's coming from a place of honesty, or whether or not she's trying to separate them for her own kind of whatever it is that she wants to do. With her, with the money, you still have Boom. Boom is not dead. So does Boom still have some kind of control over her? What happened with her and Boom? That should be a really interesting concept of how they play. And I think that they do a really great job with Marquisha, to the point of, I kind of wanted a spinoff of like the ladies of BMF and how that works. Because we do know that they weren't sitting in the corner being shy. We do know that they was running things as well. And what does that look like? And how does that impact Terry and Meech? Especially more of Terry. Was it always, oh, you just wanted to use me for, my business or what I know, or does he view it as a partnership, or is it more of like a blessing? I give you permission to go and do whatever it is that you have to do and be your own person because I respect you. But again, we always have to keep that little eye out when it comes to her or with anyone, because you really can't trust anyone, as the theme says, the enemy within. So I think overall, this is a much improved season than previously before. As I stated, it's more about everyone going on their own separate journey. Nicole, what does college look like for her? Does she even make it to college? What happens with her? and what happens with Charles and Lucille. Do they ever in the end kind of come back together and realize, hey, we work better together as opposed to apart? Or is it like, nah, I'm really happy. I don't want to see you no more. Get out of my house. So that is interesting. And also another topic I really wanted to bring up very quickly was the fact that they do introduce, there is something that actually happened. There's the concept of wealth, not the concept, but welfare exists. And one of the very interesting things with welfare, and I spoke to a documentarian, we did a whole interview about this, is the fact that one of the rules for getting on welfare, you would think, hey, I'm married to this guy, we're both broke, we need to get on something. One of the rules is a man cannot live in the house if you decide to be on welfare. It is used as a system to separate. So, like, why is the black man not in the house? Why is the father not there? It's a system and a tactic used to remove the black father from the house. There are so many different dynamics that come into play. And it was a wonderful documentary on PBS that I did a whole entire interview about the many different rules the system had to keep black families separate from each other. And it wasn't just the fact that, hey, you can't have your black husband, you can't have a boyfriend, you can't have any man in the house whatsoever at all, or you would not be able to collect. And trust me, welfare was not like, oh, you're getting $1 million a month. This was like maybe $69. This was really nothing. It was pennies, and it showed the systematic racism and the amounts that black people would get as compared to, say, a white family. Because yes, but white people also had welfare too. So it also kind of involves kind of the real world situations of that, just as much as I believe it was the Red Tails, the police force from the previous season. I think it was called Red. Do I have the right name? Was it Red Tails?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
So remember the police force of the Red Tails that was introduced into Atlanta because they wanted the Olympics to kind of clean up the streets, but they was just acting like psycho crazy people. They're back too, but they use that historical accuracy and also created with the whole welfare situation that, as I stated, was to purposely keep the black male out of the house. You couldn't be a black man, even if you was divorced, and they couldn't at all. And we'd be like, well, how could you prove that? They would have investigators, private investigators, watch the home, and they could easily come. They could actually come into your home and inspect. And if they saw a pair of male boots, you're off automatically. Oh, there's a man here. Say you had a boyfriend. Well, why can't he raise your kids and give you some money? That's just how it went. So it's actually fascinating how they were able to interweave that kind of historical thing within this series. So overall, I think that it is very good, especially compared to what we've seen previously. I am not going to lie. I'm going to say that I feel that there are moments that they still try to recapture, especially when it comes to Lamar. Lamar was essentially a fan favorite with this entire series, and they keep bringing him back. And it's why are you here? You had a great ending in season 3. So I do feel that they could use this character as a crutch for like, hey, don't abandon us. Here's Lamar. Look, be Mickey, but more so Lamar, and guns are blazing. I just don't know why. I don't know why. I felt that they could have easily had a really great story when it came to Lamar, but it's kind of like the same old, same old. So yes. So as I stated before, it's okay. It's better than what we've seen before. But I want to say this, and this might be a little bit controversial. I feel, don't kill me, BMF is the kind of show that is best enjoyable and easy to get through when binged watched, as opposed to episode to episode to episode to episode. I think sometimes you have to work a little bit on capturing the audience and making them want to tune into next season. That is just essentially the art of television. What is that moment that's like, oh, and here's what happens next? That whole Dragon Ball Z thing. And here's next on Dragon Ball Z. And they'll stop in the middle of a fight, in next week's preview. And it'll be like the same fight for like 40 episodes. But the point is, there is that cliffhanger moment. There is a certain kind of art to storylines and TV shows. And I think So, and this is not a negative either, because some shows that I've watched and binged was like, oh my God, this is amazing, as opposed to watching it weekly. So for me, I think BMF is a show that is best watched binged. Yay. So overall, that is kind of everything that I have to say about season 4 without any kind of spoilers. I think it's very good. I love the theme of the enemy within. You always got to keep an eye out, or in my case, 4 eyes out, to see what is really going to happen and really, see what each character is doing and what their true motives are. So those are my thoughts. Anything that you would like to say, Mr. Richard Bailey Jr.?
Well, first and foremost, excellent analysis on the entire season. I'll be very transparent. I've only seen the first episode. We are going to have a discussion about that episode, so stay tuned for that in the future. But what I will say is I do think the first episode does a decent job of setting up the season. I know often when we recap Power or these other shows, we always look to see how the season premiere does in terms of making one curious to see what happens next. So I will give them credit and say, yes, I saw that first episode. I was somewhat invested, and I do want to see what happens next. But I will say I am very much concerned about Lamar being on this show, because I also agree. I thought his story came to an end and it was needed. So I do want to see what is the reason and the motivation behind him being on this show for the entire season. So I'm curious. And again, I am also curious about the music aspect of it, but I will say I will be hesitant on that as well, because I recall last season we saw somebody playing the role of Tupac, and I thought to myself, who the hell is that? So that's why I said, hey, listen, maybe they can't show certain things on the show, but I just want to wait and see what they do with this season and the whole music thing, the whole music aspect of it. So stay tuned for that. But go ahead, Dana.
You actually triggered a memory thing that I really wanted to and say. One of the biggest downfalls for me of the previous seasons was the fact that we did stunt casting in terms of, here's this rapper, tune in to see what happens, and they don't have any kind of skill. When you look at something like a Power, and it's like, oh, here's this football player. Yeah, he's pretty good in that. You look at this rapper over here. Yeah, he's kind of good in that. I think that they did a really good job of kind of eliminating that, where it's not that stunt casting of, for example, I think Marisha was in the previous season. We do know that I cannot pronounce her name. We're 2 cents. Shawty, is it Sweetie? Sweetie is back. From my understanding of looking at the credits, she's perfectly fine. But when it comes to egregious bad acting, that's not there anymore. So that makes the show entirely enjoyable, because I'm not focused on this person who cannot act kind of ruining the scenes. So I think they did a wonderful job of kind of listening to the audience when it came to that. So it makes it much more enjoyable, and it makes more a seamless episode. And a more seamless series. And one of the things that I did want to mention is the fact that, we do have different locations that they go to. We're in Mexico, we're in Atlanta, we're in Detroit, and they do a really good job of bringing about the different cultures and the looks and the sounds of these different places. And again, you talk about the music. The music is important, maybe not the source of words, but the music is important in defining kind of the artists that is shown, American School, that is shown, and kind of having their own identity and their own sound, but it also fits and matches into the culture of the 90s and the state that they belong to. So again, I think that is a very good thing. That's very positive, and only me just nitpicking small aspects of the series, which, sorry. So that is kind of like everything that I really wanted to say with that. I really did enjoy this.
No, so that's good to hear. That's good to hear. I was interested in watching the rest of the season. So clearly, after listening to what you had to say, I am interested to check it out. And as I said before, we are going to talk about, we're going to potentially cover episode 1, the mid-season finale, in the finale. We may talk about certain stuff on the show as well when there are certain things that pop up that we want to address in certain episodes. But overall, yeah, definitely stay tuned. Like I said, if you've been supporting our power content, we appreciate your support. We will be covering other shows on the channel from time to time. So BMF ain't the only show we're going to be covering. We are going to have a lot more to say about that in the future. But in the meantime, definitely leave your thoughts, your comments. Are you planning on watching BMF? What other shows you would like to see us talk about? Let us know, and looking forward to talking with you all again very soon. So anything else you want to say, Dana, before we wrap?
No, that would be everything. Thank you so much for watching us, and stay tuned for what's to come, not only on this channel, but on the entertainment channel as well, because I am in the middle of the Tribeca Film Festival. Yay! We'll be talking about that as well.
Stay tuned.
So that has been, stay tuned. So that has been everything that we have to say about VMF Season 4, spoiler free. Leave us your comments, what you think of, or what you expect or hope for this season. And we will talk to you again later. Have a great day, afternoon, evening. And thanks, guys.